Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Well, today we're looking at Psalm 100. Yesterday we kicked this off with a little introduction and the first verse. Today we're going to look at verse 2. And if you recall, yesterday I said we had this chiastic structure with the imperative verbs. They make their way up to the pinnacle, which is in verse 3, and then they make their way back down the other side. And there's some parallelism within the macro setting of the psalm. Now, Hebrew poetry most often is in couplets, which allows the poet to create parallelism. And that happens a majority of the times in Hebrew poetry, not all the time, but a majority of the time. Well, sometimes when you have chiastic structure like this, you also see parallelism because whatever is at the pinnacle is going to be the top, but then you have the pieces on either side of the mountain. So we're going to see some parallelism in the macro structure of the psalm as well. That kind of gives us some insight into some things that he says in the psalm. Now, I said yesterday that this is a psalm of thanksgiving, but we don't know who the author is, so we have another orphanic psalm here. I did not check the Septuagint to see if they attribute this to David or not. I forgot to. That would be interesting to know if they see this as a Davidic psalm. Anyway, we did verse 1 yesterday. Let me read verse 2. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. All right, serve the Lord with gladness. Here's another one of our imperatives. As I said, the entire psalm really hangs on the structure of these verbs. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord was the first imperative, make a joyful noise. Second imperative is serve the Lord with gladness. And then the third imperative is right here in verse 2, come before his presence with singing. So as you can imagine, you just think about this psalm being used in a service of worship at the tabernacle or at the temple. And people are singing, make a joyful noise. So this choral sound of everyone singing this, or perhaps maybe the priests are saying this, and it's a responsive kind of thing. Maybe the priest says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, and the people say, all ye lands. And then the priest says, serve the Lord with gladness, and the people say, come before his presence with singing. So it could be responsive like that, a speaker responded to by the people. It could be that everybody's just singing this as a hymn of praise to God, and they're exhorting one another and everyone who will hear them, because they're using all these imperative verbs, which come across in a wonderful way as declaring and holding forth the faith of, their faith, the faith of the tabernacle, of the temple, of the people, of the Word of God as it's being delivered in this psalm. It's really wonderful to think about how this could have been used. So you have here the serve the Lord with gladness, come before his presence with singing. As I said, parallelism, it exists right here in this particular verse. Serve the Lord, come before his presence with singing. So how do you serve the Lord? Well, you sing. That's one way in which you can serve the Lord. You serve the Lord with gladness, and you're doing it in song. So we have now a total of 3 of these imperative verbs: make a joyful noise, serve the Lord, come before. So all of these now leading up to verse 3, and we'll get to see that tomorrow. But notice that it's joyful, it's gladness, and it's singing. So this is a happy psalm. We're there in worship, singing before the Lord, and all of this is out of the abundance of the joy for what the Lord has done for his people. All right, tomorrow we'll look at verse 3, which is the center of the psalm. Not only do we have the fourth chiastic imperative, which stands at the top of the pyramid, but also we have the central line, which explains a lot about why this psalm was written. So I hope you'll come back tomorrow and join me then here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.